Hey everyone, welcome back to Kimmy Baby 21 Motivational, where we have real, raw, and necessary conversations about the things shaping our lives. Today's episode is one of the most important and urgent conversations we need to have. We're talking about how the entertainment industry profits off hood culture, gang violence, and the destruction of young Black and brown lives. Let me make one thing clear. This is not about blaming hip-hop, drill music, or street culture. This is not about tearing down artists. This is about exposing the system that profits from violence, manipulates the culture, and keeps people trapped in cycles of destruction. Ask yourself these questions. 1. Why do record labels only push violent, destructive music from Black and brown artists? 2. Why do these same record labels take out life, insurance policies on artists, but won't invest in their long-term success? 3. Why is it that when an artist starts talking about ownership, leaving the streets, or educating their people, they suddenly lose industry support? 4. Why does a rapper's music sell the most after they die, but their family and community get nothing? None of this is an accident. This is a carefully designed system. What we're breaking down today: 1. How hip-hop was hijacked, from empowerment to destruction. 2. How record labels profit from the deaths of rappers. 3. How music rewires your brain and turns you into what you consume. 4. How social media fuels gang violence and makes it profitable. 5. The psychological impact of violent music on young minds. 6. How to break the cycle and reclaim our power. 7. The future of hip-hop. Can we take our culture back? This is one of the most uncomfortable, but necessary conversations we're going to have. Let's get into it.
Woo!
Segment 1. From Power to Profit. How hip-hop was hijacked. Hip-hop's origins, a tool for change. Hip-hop wasn't born in violence, it was born in resistance, empowerment, and storytelling. It was the voice of the unheard, the rhythm of the streets, and a powerful tool for change. The birth of a movement. In the 1970s, the Bronx was burning. Poverty, gang violence, and systemic neglect had turned the borough into a war zone. But amidst the chaos, something new emerged. Young Black and Latino kids, with nothing but turntables, microphones, and raw creativity, built a culture that would shake the world. DJs like Kool Herc threw block parties where the beat never stopped, giving birth to breakbeats and MC battles. Rappers like Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five used music to document the struggles of the streets. Public Enemy turned hip-hop into a weapon of resistance, exposing racism, police brutality, and government corruption. Hip-hop wasn't just music, it was knowledge. It was self-sufficiency, it was unity, lyrics with a purpose. The early pioneers of hip-hop weren't talking about drugs, murder, or mindless materialism. They rapped about police brutality. The Message, by Grandmaster Flash, painted a grim picture of life in the ghetto. Community upliftment, KRS-One preached self-education and empowerment. Breaking generational curses, Chuck D and Public Enemy called for revolution through knowledge. This wasn't about selling records, it was about survival, about giving a voice to the voiceless. Hip-hop was the news for people who had been ignored by the media. It was a force of resistance against a system that wanted to keep them silent. The shift when the industry took over. But then something changed. The music industry, run by wealthy executives who had no ties to the culture, realized hip-hop wasn't just an art form. It was a billion-dollar business. Suddenly, the same industry that had ignored or dismissed hip-hop saw dollar signs. And they had a plan. Control the message, control the money. The late 1980s and early 90s, the corporate takeover. Record labels started investing heavily in hip-hop, but not in the artists who spoke about knowledge, unity, or empowerment. They pushed a new agenda, one that was easier to package and sell to the masses. Positive and conscious rap? Ignored. Street violence and drug culture? Marketed aggressively. Gangsta rap was profitable because it was controversial. It didn't just entertain, it provoked outrage, moral panic, and media attention. The industry knew that controversy sells. Case study, the gangsta rap takeover. By the early 90s, hip-hop had multiple identities. Some rappers talked about street survival. Others preached education and empowerment. Others just wanted to make party anthems. But the labels chose what they wanted to promote. They didn't want KRS-One or Public Enemy teaching kids to think critically. They wanted gangsta rap because it was explosive, because it caused headlines, because it made money. And so a dangerous transformation began. Tupac and Biggie, the industry's deadliest creation. Tupac Shakur started as a poet, an activist, a revolutionary mind influenced by the Black Panthers. His early music was filled with pain, wisdom, and the struggles of Black America. Biggie Smalls was a master storyteller, rapping about street life with brutal honesty, but always with charisma and depth. Neither started as violent rappers, but record labels saw an opportunity. They pushed a deadly narrative, coast versus coast, east versus west. What started as a rap rivalry turned into a war fueled by media hype and corporate greed. Tupac was shot, survived, then shot again, killed. Biggie was murdered 6 months later. The two biggest hip-hop artists of their time were dead, not because of music, but because of an industry that had turned their art into a weapon of destruction. Lesson learned: the manipulation of hip-hop. Hip-hop was never supposed to be about glorifying violence, drugs, or self-destruction. But once the industry realized destruction was profitable, they pushed that image relentlessly. The artists who wanted to uplift and educate, silenced. The ones who would sell pain, crime, and chaos, given record deals and radio play. And so a culture that started as a tool for empowerment was hijacked, turned into a product, stripped of its original purpose. Hip-hop wasn't just changed by the industry. It was manipulated, weaponized, and sold back to the very communities it was meant to save. Segment 2, the industry's death profit model. How record labels make money from an artist's death. Most people don't realize this, but the music industry, especially major record labels, doesn't just profit from an artist's success, they also profit from their death. In fact, many record labels take out life insurance policies on their artists, which means that when an artist dies, the label receives a massive payout on top of the money they make from album sales and streaming spikes. That means labels already make millions from their artist's music, but they make even more if the artist dies unexpectedly. This creates a disturbing conflict of interest. Instead of protecting their artists, labels have a financial reason to let them remain in dangerous environments or exploit their risky lifestyles. The more controversial or high-risk an artist is, the more profitable their image becomes. And if they die, their name becomes a brand that sells more than ever before. Case study: Pop Smoke's murder and the business of death. Pop Smoke was one of the fastest rising stars in Brooklyn drill music. His deep voice, aggressive flow, and undeniable talent made him a standout figure. At just 20 years old, he had already built a major fan base and was on track to become a global rap superstar. But instead of guiding him toward a long, sustainable career, the industry capitalized on his dangerous image, pushing the gangster narrative because it sold records. Then in February 2020, Pop Smoke was murdered in a Hollywood Hills home invasion. What happened next? 1. His album was rushed out. Just 5 months after his death, his posthumous album, Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon, was released. The album debuted at #1 on the Billboard charts and became one of the best-selling rap albums of the year. 2. His music sales skyrocketed. Within 24 hours of his death, Pop Smoke's streaming numbers jumped by 392%. His previous mixtapes, which had been growing steadily, saw millions of new listeners overnight. Merchandise, vinyl records, and tribute projects were quickly monetized. 3. The label made millions. Between insurance payouts, skyrocketing album sales, and streaming revenue, the label likely made more from his death than if he had lived a long career. And after they got their money, the industry moved on to the next young artist, ready to repeat the cycle. The bigger picture: why death is good for business. This isn't just about Pop Smoke. The deaths of Tupac, Biggie, XXXTentacion, Juice WRLD, and Nipsey Hussle all followed the same pattern. 1. A young, promising rapper with controversy around their name. 2. A sudden, tragic death that shakes the music world. 3. A massive increase in album sales and streaming revenue. 4. A rush to release posthumous music, merchandise, and documentaries. 5. Millions of dollars flowing to the label and industry executives, while the artist's family and friends are left with grief. Lesson learned: rappers in the industry aren't just musicians, they're investments. And as tragic as it is, their deaths are incredibly profitable. The real question is, if labels make more money when an artist dies, why would they ever protect them? Segment 3, how music rewires your brain. Be careful what you listen to. Music is mental programming. Studies show that violent lyrics increase aggressive thoughts and behaviors. Repetition rewires the brain, making certain thoughts and beliefs automatic. The more you listen, the more those words become part of your identity. Case study: the effect of drill music on street violence. In cities like Chicago, London, and New York, drill music has fueled real-life violence. The music isn't just entertainment, it's a live documentation of gang wars. Many young people see it as their only way out, so they imitate what they hear. Lesson learned: your mind absorbs what you feed it. If all you consume is negativity, it shapes how you think and act. Segment 4: how social media fuels the cycle of gang culture. Social media rewards gang violence with views, likes, and money. YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok push violent content because it gets engagement. Rappers use diss tracks to insult their rivals, and those beefs turn into real shootings and murders. Case study: King Von and Quando Rondo. King Von and Quando Rondo had real street beef that played out on social media. It ended in a fatal shooting, and both sides lost someone. But what did the industry do? They promoted the beef. They made money off the diss songs. They moved on after the violence ended. Lesson learned: social media turns real deaths into entertainment, and people are profiting from it. Segment 5: the psychological impact of violent music on young minds. The way we consume music affects us on a deeper psychological level. How violent lyrics shape behavior and identity. Music is powerful. It shapes our thoughts, actions, and beliefs, whether we realize it or not. Research has shown that listening to violent lyrics can make us more aggressive, especially in vulnerable moments. Young people are particularly susceptible. When they listen to songs filled with violence, drugs, and misogyny, they begin to internalize these ideas and behaviors. Case study: the influence of violent lyrics on youth culture. Take the Chicago drill scene. Many of the young artists rapping about street life and violence come from neighborhoods ravaged by crime and poverty. Their music, however, is often used as a marketing tool, glorifying their dangerous lives for profit, and giving others the illusion that this is the only way to get out of poverty. Young fans, often living in similar environments, might listen to these lyrics and feel like they need to follow suit. They're not just listening to music, they're learning how to live. This leads to a dangerous cycle, where violence is normalized and people start to believe they have to participate to be respected. Lesson learned: music is not just entertainment. It's a form of programming that shapes how we view the world and ourselves. Be aware of what you're feeding your mind. Segment 6: how to break the cycle, reclaiming control over what we consume. It's easy to feel trapped in the cycle of violent music and culture. But the good news is we can break free. 1. Audit your playlist. What are you really listening to? Take a moment to review the songs on your playlist. What messages are they sending? Are they empowering you, or do they glorify destruction? If your top songs are filled with violent language, drugs, or hate, it's time to make a change. 2. Diversify your music. Balance the negative with the positive. Don't just cut out all the music you love, but balance it with positive and uplifting messages. Add artists who talk about building wealth, overcoming struggles, and personal growth. Artists like J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, and Chance the Rapper blend meaningful messages with storytelling that still resonates with the culture, but doesn't glorify violence. 3. Protect your mind, make conscious choices. Your mind is a precious resource. Treat it that way. Start your day with affirmations or motivational speeches. If you're feeling low or vulnerable, listen to something uplifting. Music, podcasts, anything that focuses on growth and healing. You are in control of what you consume. Don't let the industry dictate your mindset. Case study: Jay-Z's evolution and ownership. Jay-Z was once part of the street culture, rapping about selling drugs and living a dangerous life. But over time, he shifted to talk about building wealth, owning businesses, and empowering his people. He redefined what success looks like in hip-hop by going beyond the streets. Jay-Z now uses his platform to educate and inspire others to break the cycle. Lesson learned: you can't change the world, but you can change what you allow into your mind. Choose content that elevates you. Segment 7: the future of hip-hop. Can we take our culture back? The question we all need to ask ourselves is, can we reclaim hip-hop from the industry's stranglehold? For decades, hip-hop has been more than just music. It's been a movement, a voice for the voiceless, a reflection of struggle and survival. But somewhere along the way, its power was diluted. What started as a way to uplift communities and challenge oppression has been turned into a money-making machine for corporations that don't care about the culture, only the profits. So the real question is, how do we take back what's ours? The power of hip-hop to uplift. Hip-hop was born in the streets, created by people who needed an outlet to express their pain, struggles, and triumphs. From the messages of Grandmaster Flash and the Furious, 5 to the conscious lyricism of Public Enemy, the roots of hip-hop were deeply tied to activism, awareness, and storytelling. It exposed truth, shining a light on police brutality, economic inequality, and systemic racism. It highlighted oppression, giving people a voice when no one else would listen. It fought back, empowering communities to organize, educate, and demand change. But look at where we are now. Today, the mainstream industry has shifted hip-hop's focus. Instead of messages of empowerment, we're bombarded with content that glorifies violence, materialism, and self-destruction. This isn't by accident, it's by design. We have to ask ourselves, why is music that promotes self-destruction pushed to the top of the charts? Who benefits from hip-hop artists dying young or ending up in prison? Why are the messages that uplift and inspire often buried or ignored by mainstream media? The truth is, we've allowed corporations and record labels to turn hip-hop into a commodity, something to be exploited rather than something to be honored. And if we don't reclaim it, we risk losing it forever. What needs to happen next? If we want to reclaim hip-hop, we need to take intentional steps to change the narrative. This means action from both artists and fans. 1. Artists must regain control over their art. Musicians must start owning their masters, their publishing rights, and their distribution channels. Independent artists have more power than ever. Streaming and social media allow them to bypass the industry's gatekeepers. We need more artists to follow the path of ownership rather than signing exploitative deals. 2. Fans must demand change from the music industry. Stop supporting artists who glorify violence and self-destruction. Labels promote what sells, so if we refuse to consume toxic content, they'll be forced to change. Support conscious artists, those who talk about growth, unity, and self-empowerment. If we don't control what we consume, we let corporations dictate our culture. 3. Invest in the next generation. The future of hip-hop lies in the youth. If we want change, we need to mentor, educate, and support young artists who are willing to shift the narrative. Community programs, independent platforms, and grassroots movements need to be funded and promoted. This isn't just about music. It's about shaping the minds of the next generation. If we allow hip-hop to remain in the hands of those who don't care about our communities, we'll continue to see the cycle of violence, materialism, and ignorance being glorified. Case study, Nipsey Hussle, a blueprint for change. If we're looking for a model of how to take control, Nipsey Hussle showed us the way. Before his tragic passing, he was actively building something bigger than himself. He owned his masters and refused to sign traditional record deals that stripped him of his creative and financial control. He invested in his community, opening businesses in South Central LA to provide jobs and opportunities for people who needed them. He promoted financial literacy, real estate investment, and generational wealth, teaching people how to create lasting success. The lesson from Nipsey: he didn't let the system dictate his legacy. He built his own empire and tried to teach others to do the same. If more artists followed his example, the industry would have less control over our culture. The way forward, unity and upliftment. Hip-hop belongs to the people, not the industry. It's time to take it back. We don't have to sacrifice the rawness or the realness of hip-hop. We can still tell authentic stories. But let's shift the message from destruction to building, from pain to power. We need balance. Hip-hop has always had street stories, but they used to be mixed with knowledge, growth, and hope. That's what we need to restore. We need to support artists who reflect the best of us, not the worst. The industry only profits off negativity because we allow it. The moment we stop feeding into it, we force change. Closing, reclaim your power. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Kimmy Baby 21 Motivational. We've talked about the dark side of the entertainment industry, how it profits from destruction rather than upliftment. But we've also talked about how we have the power to change that. Now it's up to you. What will you consume? What will you support? Will you let the industry control your mind, your culture, and your future? Or will you reclaim your power? Remember, you are what you consume. The music, the media, the messages, they shape your mindset. Choose wisely, stay mindful, stay empowered. And let's take back our culture, one conscious choice at a time. Stay strong, and I'll see you in the next episode.